Still remaining on news education, Section 29 of the Constitution provides that every learner has the right to receive a basic education in the language of his or her choice. Sounds good in theory, but we all know it's not happening in practice. While debate over this continues, last year government announced that Kiswahili will also be introduced as an optional subject in 90 trial South African schools. To discuss the practicalities and benefits of this, so we cross to our Pretoria studios now, where educator Professor Veronica McKay joins us. Professor, a very good evening to you and thank you so much for joining us. I suppose one simple question at this point is, are we ready?
Hello and good evening. I am not an employee of the Department of Basic Education, and so basically I'm going to talk to you about what I know of the Kiswahili pilot project that the department's embarking on.
And that's what I'm borrowing from, Professor.
Yeah.
You know, when I ask, are we ready? Because we know that some schools in Gauteng have been carrying out this pilot project. So from what you have observed, do you think we are ready?
I don't think the department will be ready to roll out tomorrow. They certainly won't be ready to implement tomorrow. What they have done thus far is they've identified 90 schools, which is 10 schools per province. And the proposal is that Kiswahili will be taught as a second additional language. So the department will go through various project stages. They've already identified schools. And what they will do is they'll be using existing teachers who will be identified and orientated to teach the language. The curriculum that they'll be using is the usual second additional language curriculum. So that exists. And I know the department's in the process of developing workbooks for these children. So that is in process. The curriculum for the second additional language, the CAPS curriculum, has been used with the other 9 African languages that we teach in schools, and also for South African Sign Language, which is currently now a school examinable subject. The curriculum is very basic, and the teachers will be prepared and trained to teach the subject. It works at a very rudimentary level of communicative competence, the same level of that we've used for all the other languages, because I was involved in the development of the materials.
All right, Professor, allow me to interrupt you and jump in there. So naturally, there are questions related to South Africa's current socio-linguistic and educational context about why teach Kiswahili in our schools. How do you answer that question?
Well, the schools already teach a number of languages. They teach German and French and a whole range of languages. And I think this is the first continental language that's been taught. And I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of the drive, and there's been a very strong drive in universities as well to decolonize the curriculum or to Africanize the curriculum, basically to broaden the lens. And so Kiswahili is a language that's spoken across the continent. It is an African Union language, and I think it will give, it really broadens the lens.
And we'll talk about the benefits of broadening not only the lens, but obviously our consciousness at that level of school. But then critics will come back and say, has the country done all it can to champion local languages before adding another to the mix? And is there space on an already crowded timetable to successfully carry on with this project?
Okay, there are 2 questions.
Yes.
The one is, to what extent has the department strengthened the current African languages? And there are a number of initiatives, starting right back from the introduction of the CAPS in 2011. The department did embark on really working on the African languages as a first language, as a home language. And there are, for example, school workbooks that have been developed to enhance that language. There are a whole range of initiatives that government has worked on. For example, there's a very important initiative in the Eastern Cape where children have been taught mathematics in isiXhosa and in Sesotho, which are the two local languages, up to grade 9, and really the schools have been seeing very, very good results from that. As I mentioned earlier, South African Sign Language is there, and I know the department is doing what we've been doing at UNISA. There's an initiative to develop the exam question papers in 11 languages, and we've done it at the university for 2 years, and we've really seen benefits where students are able to determine the nuances in the asking of exam questions. So I think that the department is working in that direction.
Now, Professor, some would obviously see this as trailblazing from South Africa's perspective, because it seems there are East African community countries that are not teaching Kiswahili as a subject the way South Africa intends to. So how are we innovating in this respect?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
So I'm saying there are East African countries that actually speak Kiswahili, but they aren't teaching it the way South Africa intends to teach it as a subject. So can we talk about how we are innovating in this regard? I do think it's an innovation. What I can mention is that second additional languages are not used for progression purposes. So you can't pass or fail on the basis of this. But it is an innovation in that it gives those children who already have an African language, perhaps as a mother tongue, and they have English as a first additional language, it gives those children an opportunity to take yet another African language, which is the lingua franca of the continent. And I really think that as they grow and go into the world of work, that language, that linking language, might make a lot of difference to the kinds of careers they take and to the work that they do. And of course, it's also become a popular research subject at many South African universities and garnering a lot of international interest. Thank you so much for speaking to us from our Pretoria studios, Professor Veronica McKay, who is Dean of Education Faculty at the University of South Africa.